good to be here at Burwood Church, and certainly with all of you here this evening. And I have just been given a signal of a shorter talk, which is meaning that we're going to go a little bit faster. So greetings on behalf of the Australia ADRA Board of Directors, and a big hearty appreciation to Beck and Charlene, to Graham, and the entire ADRA team here in Victoria for the work that you do, to Kate for the painting that you're doing over here on the left, and also to the commissioners who have sung so beautifully and kept us always at the throne of God. To John, good question this evening about good statement about wanting to have more churches involved. And just at our last Board of Directors meeting on Tuesday, we voted to spend some money on hiring somebody who will be responsible for actually encouraging churches to be more involved in our domestic and our international programs. And I think it's because of the fact that we believe so strongly in the mission statement that we have, which is to serve humanity so that all may live as God intended. So it begged a question for me. What makes something beautiful? What actually makes something beautiful? And how do we perceive beauty when we're looking around on a daily basis? How do we assess what is beautiful? Is it intrinsic? Is it extrinsic? What attention do we pay to it? And how do we ensure that what we're looking at is truly beautiful? Many years ago, and it was our 31st anniversary on Thursday, we were extrinsically beautiful. Maybe not so much today. But today we have more intrinsic value. When I look at my bride of 31 years and 4.5 years beyond that of dating, we have lost some of the joy and beauty, not the joy, some of the beauty of what we looked like when we were much thinner and much younger, where there were no age spots. There were no children. But over time, the extrinsic beauty that we have had has actually turned and gone from being external to being more internal. And it has grown as a result. And it has meant that every day is still a new and wonderful day when we see each other, when we talk to each other. And the reason for that is that we actually have children who have been a part of that whole process. And my son is studying to become a teacher, but he really wants to work for ADRA. So clearly he can't do that as long as I'm the chairman of the board, Charlene, but it's one of the things that he's actually looking at. What determines what is beautiful? And how do we actually put it in context with the mission statement that we have as ADRA? A few years ago, the Washington Post asked a renowned violinist to actually play in the subway of Washington, D.C. And Joshua Bell came to a very clear place here in Washington, D.C. He had his Stradivarius with him. It's worth several $1 million. They placed him in some very interesting positions, and he actually played for the community that was passing by. But no one really paid him a lot of attention. They didn't know how good he was, because when they looked at him, they saw a busker instead of a renowned worldwide international violinist. And because they were looking at him as an individual who was wanting money, they didn't look beyond the clothing and the hat in front for the cash, and they didn't actually stop to hear the beauty of the music that he was playing. 6 different pieces were played, and those pieces had a very complex melody. And for those who love violin and for those who love the composing of classical music, it was stunning to listen, but in total, very few actually stopped and listened, and very few actually engaged in sharing with him at all. Look at that. What is beauty? Beauty is something very interesting. The first of these two things, of the primary explanations that people have had about why he did not have so much engagement, was that the first concerns how beauty is perceived in any given situation. Sometimes we think of something as beautiful because everything around it is focusing our attention on it as being the thing of beauty. But when we take it out of context, what we perceive to be beauty in its environment is no longer how we see it when it is out of that context. And secondly, It involves the helping behavior in humans, or more specifically, how we assess situations in which we assume help is being asked for by another person. If he had not had his hat out before him, if he had not been dressed in casual clothing, there is the potential that the humanity that walked by would have actually spent a little bit more time looking at him and considering his worth. But because they had their heads down, and you do this when you're walking through the mall, there's always people who are asking for money in the mall. What do we all do? And off we go. We avoid their stares because we don't want to actually be involved in supporting something that we may not agree with, or because we don't really want to get embarrassed by the fact that we may not have a lot of cash available. So people seeking help are often seen as a nuisance, are often seen as a burden, and so we intentionally ignore, and therefore we sometimes miss what is beautiful. I was in VKK not too long ago at an ADRA project, and VKK is in the country of Timor-Leste. And we were there to look at all the programs that we did on behalf of ADRA Australia and ADRA New Zealand and ADRA International and ADRA Europe. And as we were traveling around the country, we actually came to this little place and met this woman. I don't know her name. She didn't give us her name. But she is beautiful. The lines on her face, the experiences that she has gone through, the pain and suffering, but above all, if you look at her, you won't even know that she's 87 years old. 87. Immediately, we felt like helping her, but she was the one that was actually helping us. We asked her, how have you managed to live to be 87 years of age when in your country the average age of death is 61? And she said, I've been a vegetarian all my life. And we thought, fantastic. A vegetarian. What faith? Roman Catholic. Fantastic. Let's have a conversation. And she shared with us all the things that made her who she is. And the beauty of who she is continued to grow. I just felt that this picture really encapsulated everything that ADRA Australia was doing, bringing dignity to individuals, instilling values in them that made them feel worthy. I can't show you a picture of a recent trip that I had in Papua New Guinea. But in Papua New Guinea, the ADRA Australia team has, with the New Zealand team, spent over $200,000 supporting one of our churches called the Pilgrim Church in Lae. They've built a refugee house where all women who have been abused and their children who have been abused or who have been called witches come to find refuge. All of the volunteer services for that refuge is actually provided by the Seventh-day Adventist Church Pilgrim members. And it's become such a success that the government has said that they want to build 80 of these around the country. And I can't show you any pictures for fear that people will be identified and that the beauty of what's actually happening in that context will be marred by the violence that has actually caused us to have that place. Here's what I found in Scripture when I was thinking about the Joshua Bell experiment and our way of looking at beauty. What gain has the worker from his toil? I have seen the business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart, yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. I perceive that there is nothing better for them than to be joyful and to do good as long as they live. Also, that everyone should eat and drink and take pleasure in all his toil, for that is God's gift to man. So here we have as a mission statement to share humanity, to serve humanity, so that all may live as God intended. And right here in Ecclesiastes, we see that the intention is to serve, to look at what's beautiful, to recognize that we are not eternal, but very clearly have a start and end date and yet to think more broadly as to the eternal implications of the decisions that we make from day to day. And that is what brings us joy. And that's what brings us fulfillment. And in that joy and fulfillment, as we serve and as we care, as we help people live as God intended, we gain happiness and joy from that. I just want to close by sharing a couple of things. How do we actually apply what we can learn from Joshua Bell's experiment? Being aware of how you assess the world around you is a great way to begin appreciating it. When you are in a familiar setting, such as the Burwood Seventh-day Adventist Church, and you're only focusing at the task at hand, ensuring that you hand out all of the awards to the people in an appropriate manner, important moments can actually be easily missed. Easily missed. The joy of a child running through the church. The joy of looking somebody who has a smile on their face because they're sitting next to somebody who has given them fellowship and joy. Just by looking up and actively seeking the beauty in your environment, you will expose yourself to even more new experiences. And when you pass someone on the street who's asking for help, don't automatically shut down and ignore them. You actually can make an impact in their lives. And when you acknowledge a human being in that manner, you're seeing them with the beauty that God actually sees them. And we all make mistakes, and we all fail from time to time. I guess the joy that comes in life is in recognizing that God continues to place before us opportunities in which we can serve in this manner. To serve humanity so that all may live as God intended. Words for us to live by, and words that Adra has lived by for 40 plus years, going all the way really to 1931, as we heard from our history. May the Lord bless us, and may Adra not be here for another 40 years, but if we are, may we do even better than what we've done.